Welcome, business aficionados, to a very special edition of A Shot of Business Central and a Beer. It's that time of year again, and we're here to spread some holiday cheer. So, in episode 56, we're thrilled to have the insightful Mr. Jim Gio from Triangle Package Machinery Company joining us for our annual holiday extravaganza. And we've also got Kim Simios from Solution Systems sitting in once again. I think this is attending her second podcast. So, as we unwrap the latest gifts from Business Central World, we're also going to be diving into the freshest Microsoft AI news, exploring some cutting edge developments that are shaping the future with AI. And to top it all off, we've got a sophisticated drink for our taste buds. We've got a great blend of cognac with eggnog. So everybody grab your glasses, settle in, and let's toast to happy holidays and a good podcast.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers. Welcome, Jim and Kim. How's everybody doing?
Jim and Kim. Doing okay.
Doing great. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime. We're thrilled you guys could be back. All right. So I guess we'll start off by talking about a little bit about what we're drinking. As mentioned earlier, we're drinking, cognac with eggnog, and specifically Clark and Sheffield XO cognac. Anybody know anything about it?
Cognac or eggnog?
Specifically Clark and Sheffield cognac.
Oh, don't know anything about it.
Oh.
I know a little bit about cognac.
All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about Clark and Sheffield first. So basically what it is it's a product that is owned by Binny's, and it's named after where they had their first store at Clark and Sheffield Roads. And that's how they got the name. The XO means that it's extra old when you're talking for cognac, and it's aged for at least 10 years. So what do you know about cognac, Kim?
Cognac is I knew nothing about it, to be honest with you. What is cognac? I don't know.
Wow.
Right? Well, it's a type of brandy. And then, so what's your next
What?
question?
Why is it
What's brandy?
Right, yeah.
Well, brandy is a liquor produced from distilled wine. So what makes cognac is that it's the type of brandy that's generally made in the area of Cognac, France.
Gotcha.
So easy enough, right? And it is produced by twice distilling wine made from grapes grown in that kind of general region.
Did you know cognac was a form of wine before you researched it?
No, I didn't know
Neither did I.
I didn't know what made brandy or cognac.
What about you guys? Do you guys have any idea that
No.
cognac's a form of wine? I had no idea.
I'm not a hard liquor person.
Don't lie. All right, so we're taking the cognac, and it seems kind of weird now knowing that it's a wine and mixing it with eggnog, right? It I don't know, just
Well, I also saw like eggnog, spiked eggnog, I guess we'd call it,
Mhm.
is also sometimes made with sherry or rum as well.
rum I could see. Sherry's, yeah. So Ken, or anybody, does eggnog really have eggs in it?
Yes.
Yes.
It does. Raw eggs.
Eggs, sugar, and milk, right? Or cream.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess, depending on your health status.
I think there's a drink. Isn't there a drink called egg creams? Which is like eggnog, but I think it's not made actually with eggs.
Yeah.
I think so, but
But this is pretty tasty with a little sprinkle of nutmeg on top, little cinnamon stick in there. This is
I could put back more than a few of these
It's like a
without
dessert
noticing it.
cocktail.
Yeah.
right, kind of.
You got to be a lover of eggnog. Well, not a lover, but you got to be a fan of eggnog.
I like it. I like these little like little tidbit like trivia type things, like when I'm reading up about cognac or brandy, and like I love this. Like in the 19th century, brandy was used as a medical treatment.
Oh,
For what?
Of course it was,
right.
right?
All alcohol is.
Um,
Oh, to wipe off wounds and stuff?
well, it was also European explorers. They said that moderate doses of brandy might help a traveler who was like an explorer, cope with fever, depression, and stress.
Cope being the key word, right? So we're gonna get you drunk enough where the fever and depression and stress doesn't bother
To
you.
cope with the
Yeah,
fever,
yeah.
the depression.
Doesn't get rid of it.
I guess
Just
it makes
go.
sense. I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the first time someone said they're stressed out, so they're gonna have a drink.
Right.
Oh yeah, they hit the
Right.
bottle all the time.
I mean, you know,
All right, so you like little interesting tidbits. Did you know for cognac, the distillation season? God, I can't talk. Anyway, it runs from October 1st to March 31st only, giving distillers 5 months to produce cognac.
because of the grapes or the wine.
I have absolutely no
grape
idea.
they're using,
I do not know.
or wine, I guess. Twice distilled wine. So they've got alcohol, and then they distill the alcohol.
Yeah,
Really?
Mhm.
this should be your second favorite drink behind wine, then, Jim. Cognac. No, you don't drink a lot of cognac.
No, I don't.
Yeah. This one is.
I'm thinking it's more raw format of just being wine.
So this is 40%, so 80 proof.
Mm.
Pretty strong. So typically 35 to 60% alcohol. So it could be strong. Some cognacs could be 120 proof.
Yeah.
That's why your hair's standing up.
So
Is it? Can you see it?
Mhm.
All right. So let's move on then. Let's talk, get a little bit into our special guest that's here with Jim Gio, and he can kind of, maybe for the readers who aren't readers, maybe for the listeners who haven't listened to the previous episodes, maybe you can give them a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, that type of thing.
Perfect. So, well, thanks again for having me back. It's getting to be a nice Christmas tradition every
Absolutely.
year doing this. So my name is Jim Gio. I've been with Triangle Package Machinery Company for the past 9 years. We've been in business. We're celebrating our 100th year right now in the packaging industry.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's same family's owned it the entire time. It's a proud family business right here in Chicago. We make packaging machines primarily for the food service industry. For basically, like I said, the last 9 years, I've been charged with updating their technology systems and really trying to help evolve how we transact and how we do business with our systems. And with that, when I came on board, we were using a very older ERP system. Having had previous experience with SSI, I thought it would be a great fit for my company with our ideology and how we do business, and then how you guys do business. In my experience with you, I thought it was a good pairing of the two, and thankfully it has been. And
Cheers to
really,
that.
it's just been a very interesting journey. This is as I've said, in previous podcasts, we went to originally with Nav, and that was supposed to be almost like a sanity check type of project. They actually had another ERP system picked, and they were just going to look at Nav just to reassure that, yep, this is the right one to go with. And Nav just ended up being the better product. And it went from being, choice number 2 to far and away the winner.
Wow.
And so we've been very, positive on the product. We've done several upgrades. We just finished our latest upgrade to Business Central a few months ago. And, like every upgrade, they have their hurdles, but I mean, for the most part, it's been a very good transition. The users are adapting to it very easily. And
Because you moved
product grade.
everything from objects to extensions, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's always going to have some sort of hurdles, and it takes time because it's basically a whole new development type of style.
I mean, it's almost a new implementation. I mean, at that point,
Pretty
we're
much.
redesigning everything. And when I look at the hurdles that we came over from going from our original product of MK into Nav, and then we just did this latest upgrade, I mean, there's no comparison. It was,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say this was a non-event, but for the most part, it was a non-event. And really, I mean, I can credit 2 different areas. I mean, the software is great, and it's very intuitive. But I mean, my team at the office, my staff there is, our end users are just amazing. They own the product, and that's really what makes for me, that's what makes my job a lot easier. And that's what makes it easier for us to do what we do, is because when the user owns the product, it's not falling on my department or on your team to do trainings and guidances. It's mostly, okay, they know what's broken. They know what's not right. So they can come to us with, here's what's going on. Here's the workaround that we're going to do, but we need you to fix this.
It's great.
That makes things a lot easier. So
Yeah.
it's, the fact that, BC now is a product that the users can take that kind of ownership of. And like I said, I have a great user community and they do own this product. I mean, they know it inside and out. And I love that about it. So
That's great.
it's very approachable, the product. So I do love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the number one factor in a successful deployment, really, of any software, but especially ERP, is that the users embrace it and take ownership of it and
Understand it.
learn it and make sure that it's working, and the users on their team know what they're doing and how to do what they need to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, because you hear a lot of stories where a lot of companies just want the user to just press one button or push one digital button, not know anything that's going on, why they're doing it or anything like that.
Right.
So when something happens or the way of doing it changes a little bit, everybody gets flustered and upset. And maybe that happened when you guys went from the green screen nav or whatever, because
It did.
it changed.
Because there's a lot
Right.
of road activity. I mean, the person didn't know what they were doing, but they know if I hit, Control K, that
Exactly.
it does this, and that's what I need to do. Now the end users know exactly what they're doing. And what's really good about that, though, too, is they know the process behind it. So what that's allowed us to do is evolve the process. And we've actually pushed all of our systems to, I'm not gonna say the brink, but we've had to upgrade because there's a necessity to upgrade because we pushed it. Because it's not just my department saying, well, to stay in compliance, we need to upgrade. It's operations coming to me and, saying, hey, we've maxed out. What can we do now? Well, guess what? The latest version has this in there. Perfect. Let's schedule that to get in here. Those are the types of things they really like to see. And that's where that ownership in the system really comes into play, as they're driving the need to upgrade, not just calendar year. And I'm like, well, we got to stay in compliance. So let's upgrade, fellas.
Right. They're giving you very thoughtful, insightful feedback, which in turn helps you to choose different products and different things, whatever, which makes their job easier. And ultimately, the company becomes more productive.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I kind of think about this, your whole journey, like you mentioned, as like a microcosm of a similar analogy would be the Godfather trilogy. If you've ever watched the Godfather, which shows the Corleone family over decades, right? This is not quite decades, and it's not quite as dramatic,
Right.
as the films, but basically, we go way back 4 years ago. You were running NAV 2016 and talk about how do we get from here to there, and it was it's been a multi-step journey to get there, right? So first, let's go to BC 13, 14, right in that range.
Right.
Let's take advantage of a lot of that new technology that's out there, but still have the objects. Then next step, let's get away from all the objects and get into full extensions. Still on premise though.
Right.
Right. So right?
There's a
The
lot of
keyword.
investment in that. And it's something that I definitely want to see us move into, going into a full cloud solution. Right now we're doing private cloud. But eventually I would love to go into a full hosted solution. Right now, the only thing that's holding me back is we still do have we have our inherent PLM system that I need to tie into. I need to make sure that that's always working with this. But ideally, for my department, I mean, I need us to evolve with it, and I really don't want to have us be the hindrance in the business moving forward. So, I mean, technology is continuing to move, and my department has to evolve as well. So, natural evolution is going to be that I'm going to put this into the cloud at some point, and a hosted cloud. And I'm actually a big proponent of cloud, just not for this yet.
Yeah, I think last time we talked, cloud was obviously more newer, and I think you had some drawbacks on the security of cloud back then. How do you feel about cloud security now overall? Are you okay with it? Do you trust it? Do you think you could add to the back end of it or whatever with MFA and everything to keep it more secure?
I think that security and cyber threats are always, it's an evolving thing. So you're never really going to get in front of, I mean, I shouldn't say never going to get in front of it, but you're always going to have to evolve with it and, hope for the best. I mean, you're going to put best practices in. I think really, I mean, a good remediation plan is, one of your best tools. I mean, it's going to happen. If they're really
Right,
targeting you, it's going to happen. What do you do to minimize the damage and things like that? As far as, the security of going to a cloud service, I mean, they have 24/7 monitoring. I mean, that's all, things that I'm not going to have the ability or the resources to pay for with a company of our size. So it has, it's a lot of advantages. And I think it's also, don't forget though, too, like I mentioned before, I'm a 100-year-old company and
Yeah.
I have to baby step this in though, too. And to Ken's point, this is a journey. I mean, it's hard enough to, explaining virtualization, to people where they're used to seeing, we bought a new server and there it is. Or when I'm buying, this, and I'm like, okay, I spun up a new server. Where is it? I'm pointing at a rack and I'm like, okay, see all those machines there? It's somewhere in that. And, I have to also be mindful of, the ownership and, keeping them comfortable with what we're doing. So, making sure that this is something that they're comfortable with is, hey, do you like the idea of this not being here? And I have to say they're extraordinarily supportive of me and my department and some of the changes that we're putting in place. But I also have to be respectful of them and just be like, okay,
Yeah.
too much too soon is, you can't just go from, metal servers to all of a sudden it's somewhere in the ether in Microsoft's cloud.
Right.
They do still like the idea, and I still like the idea of saying, okay, it's in the cloud, but it's our cloud. It's at, our hosting company, and
Mhm.
at some point they'll go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the trend, right? With most companies that are using single service cloud, whatever you want to call it, private cloud. I think a lot of them are going to end up going away from it just because, I mean, there's more fees associated with it too.
Which ones so right now private cloud, when I looked at like the SaaS portion of Azure, it was actually cost prohibitive, but now it's actually starting to level out. And so that's another factor
Interesting.
in all of this is that I also have to be mindful of the cost. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's a huge portion of it. So from my point of view, it's starting to get to that point where in another 2 or 3 years, it's going to be more beneficial for me to be in Microsoft's cloud than it is to be in my own private cloud.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's getting there. It's on the way.
Right. Yeah, we're pretty close. And I think,
Yeah.
and the big, like, I guess what puts that, if you do a cost benefit analysis and you're looking at the annual ROI for on-premise versus cloud, for me, the big thing that now is kind of tipped it towards online version that Microsoft's hosting is the monthly updates.
right.
So the fact that not only the auto integration with Office products and everything like that, but those monthly updates where you're staying current on the latest release always.
Right.
We see.
Like
save a
think
lot of
about
money.
the upgrade project that you went through, right?
Right.
That won't exist anymore,
Yeah.
Oh, and that's
right? So
yeah, we've
that
talked about
is
that.
that's the, and it's kind of hard to quantify the dollars, right? Of what does that cost? I mean, you can quantify your outsourced,
Yes.
upgrade services, but there's also internal cost
Oh yeah.
for people to test and train on the new thing, and maybe a learning curve on something new, right? So if you add all that in,
Oh yeah.
and now that VC Online cost with no infrastructure, not worrying about backups or any of that stuff, that's where it's kind of pushed that over the top.
Oh, most definitely. And I've had that conversation with our ownership. I know specifically my boss Brian and I have spoken about that. And I said this. I mentioned to him. I go, this is going to be the last heavy lifting upgrade that we do. Like this is the last one that's going to look this bad. I go, next time we're going to just upgrade it. It's going to go in the cloud, and we're primed for that now. So
Mhm.
this poised us for that leap. And
Absolutely.
really, one of the biggest things, and I've said this, since I came on board with Triangle, is Triangle owns the technology. They own the data. This is theirs. I'm the custodian of it. And really, what I need to always make sure that I'm doing is putting it in a position where I'm never holding it hostage from the
Right.
company. And that's one of the biggest things that I always try to do. And thankfully, I mean, I can say that, you know, Brian and also the rest of, you know, the Muscat family puts that kind of trust in me. So I do enjoy that they give me that
Confidence and
yeah, that confidence and that leeway. But, you know, I have to build the trust with them. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that I'm putting them in a position that in the future, I'm not holding on to something just to
Right.
keep my, you know, my job is going to evolve. So
Absolutely.
put that, you know, move that out, do what it's supposed to do. But it's got to be the right time. And like I said, in the next few years, it will be the right time for us. The other thing I have to consider though is, I mean, I've done 2 upgrades since I've had this. I mean, the product's 8 years old with me. Um,
Going back to that.
Yeah,
you
about
know,
that.
when we bought the license. So it's one of those things of, you know, you kind of,
Yeah.
we've had the licenses for 8 years, you know, because I'm giving them up essentially when I go into the SaaS model. So, I mean,
Yeah,
That's
you'll,
something we
you'll
gotta
get I mean, yeah, there's just for you, for the listeners, perspective, when you're on on premise perpetual license,
mhm,
when you go through your annual enhancement plan renewal, if you're on, assuming you're active on the enhancement plan, instead of paying the annual, now it's 18% of the value per year, you can use the Bridge to the Cloud 2 promo, or I think there's a new promo that are coming out now in 2024, which is basically the same thing,
Mm.
which will give you a 40% discount on all of your subscription licenses. And then you pay monthly,
right.
then starting going forward for 3 years
Mhm.
with a 40% discount. So that is the kind of to encourage people to transition. And then, yeah, after the 3-year period, it's the, the standard, price.
And that's a huge, you know, thing to tell somebody to give up. I mean, really, I'm asking them at some point in time to give up ownership of a perpetual license and go
Yeah.
into a monthly fee. But the reality of it is, and once again, I mean, they're very supportive of this as well, is that they get that we're also going to always pay the enhancement fee. So it's never like I just own it. No, we're always going to be paying something. And at a certain point, I think we can justify, okay, we've had this product for 10 years. Well, we got our money's worth out of the licenses. It's
Mhm.
something we can transition into now, but it's just being mindful of those things.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I look at it as a positive if you don't have to pay an enhancement fee anymore. But like you said, you don't technically own the licenses.
Right.
But I've never heard of a story where Microsoft is like, hey,
No.
you know, we
No,
don't
they're
like
not going
you.
anywhere. From
We
what I
don't like you. Yeah, we're taking the licenses away.
understand. Yeah.
So that's an interesting. So what I guess my next question for you is, and I don't know how much you're involved with extensions and whatnot, but what are your thoughts on extensions as opposed to objects? Do you like being able to um, add different apps and extensions to Business Central as opposed to having somebody develop and build those type of things into Business Central?
I do, and it's going to make upgrades a lot easier as we go forward. I mean, and I think so when we did our last upgrade in 2019, we had started to do a lot of our conversions into extensions. So a lot of that stuff came over very easily into the new system. It was the legacy stuff that we did on our initial installation that we've had, you know, some hurdles with, but you know, I also think that that might not have been the worst thing because it really made us rethink some of our processes. And then also we eliminated some of it.
I was going to say, were you able to go through and kind of get rid of the stuff that wasn't being used a lot?
We did. We did. You know, there was a couple of, why do we do this?
Yeah.
That's not standard. I mean, sometimes you forget that it wasn't part of the
Right.
out of the box solution. So it really made us re-question some of the things that we were doing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I can't complain about extensions. I mean, those parts came in beautifully.
Yes.
You know, the stuff that all needed to be rewritten in a whole new format that
Yeah. Yeah. You're going, yeah, from CAL to AO language and everything. Yeah.
so that made it a little more interesting, but I like extensions a lot.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, going from version, I think it was 13, right? Business Central version 13 to Business Central 21,
Mhm.
right? Microsoft has doubled the pace of new releases over
Right.
that period. So that's 8 major releases of new features, redesigned logic and functionality that Microsoft has built into Business Central.
Right.
So yeah, you're going to inherently get a lot of like code reengineering and redesign as part of that. So I think it's like we used to be on like a 12 to 18 month release cycle
Mhm.
for
Right.
Microsoft years ago. And now since 2019, it's been twice a year.
Right.
And it's like, in some ways, I mean, it's great. No one's complaining that all these new features and awesome functionalities get put into Business Central, but it can at times feel like drinking through a fire hose.
Yeah.
Because there's so many new features that
I
like
think-
on top of each other.
I think when we had Mike Morton on the podcast, I think he actually even mentioned saying, you know, it's one of the things that we were looking at is two major releases a year too much? Are we releasing too many features too quickly? Can
Right.
people keep up or whatnot?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think the more the merrier.
It,
It's curious to see what an end user would think. The more the merrier, or no?
I think the more the merrier.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when it's here in that particular model where you're talking about, if I were to go to the SaaS model, that's phenomenal because here I'm getting what I pay for. I'm getting all these releases all the time.
Yeah.
You know, in my version, I mean, we're going to have to do, you know, incremental upgrades
Right.
and things like that and schedule those. But if you're getting that kind of update and that on that frequency, then it's worth the money that you're paying for it because I'm constantly getting new features and, you know, the necessity for add-ons may go down a bit because it's starting to turn into standard functionality.
Right.
You know, and going back to what like I said, I'll always credit my end users as being, you know, the driving force behind what we do. They're the ones telling me what we need to be looking at. And hey, you know what, is there something that does X, Y, and Z? Or sometimes they would come to me and say, hey, I saw this out there. I love that, you know, they're in chat rooms with people in other countries, you know, finding out how to fix problems and things like that. I mean,
That's awesome.
it's really a good feeling when they're doing that type of ownership of it and they're pushing the system.
Well, it's really good though that you guys empower the employees to do that
Mhm.
type of thing, right? That's when the creativity happens, and I guess the magic, so-called magic, can happen. I'm
Yeah.
curious. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, please.
Well, is there anything you'd like to see as standard functionality in Business Central that is not standard functionality? Like, is there anything you'd want out of the box? Like, you know, maybe one or two things. I don't know if you have anything off the top of your head.
One that is a huge portion for what we do, and you know, we spoke about a little bit earlier, is the jobs module that we use there. That would be something that because all of our machines are projects, so
Yeah.
it's a log project cycle with, you know, hundreds of steps in between it, and so having something that could manage that, and we do have an add-on for it, but it's
Yeah.
seeing something that's more of
Intuitive,
a
like-
standard feature in Business Central would be a huge win for us. I think that would be something I'd love to see.
Interesting.
I mean, outside of that, I mean, I think a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of
sure
the
every
add-ons are
company will be
good,
different
yeah.
for everybody. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
But
there's
yeah,
just certain,
jobs,
yeah,
visual
that,
scheduling.
what I do, yeah, the jobs and the, you know, some type of visual scheduling to manage those jobs, you know, so that would be a huge part of it. So some, you know, we call it a job, I mean, but basically a project manager built
Yeah.
into Business Central, I think would be a big win for a company like mine.
So if you could go back in time, right, to let's say 2016, 2015,
Okay.
would you do anything different? Like, I'm not very familiar with how you guys implemented the software in 2015. Maybe you had all these customizations and everything thrown in at once, or maybe you kind of just had it out of the box and then built on it slowly. Is there something you would do differently? Would you do it anyway?
I don't know that we could have done it any differently. I mean, I think, you know, hindsight's always 2020, but I
Absolutely.
think in fairness, I think as an IT person, you know, I could say in an arrogant fashion, like, oh, I would have done it this way, this way, this way. Yeah, but I also probably would have shut the doors. I think what you have to do is be cognizant of the users, and too much too soon is a lot. I mean, if I'm going from a green screen to this Windows application and I'm changing their world completely, well, I do have to have some form of humility and say, okay, I have to
Absolutely.
understand that the user has to know how to navigate this. So, am I putting in some non-standard practices?
Right.
Yeah, I am. But also, is that non-standard practice going to get the user to adapt to the system a little bit better? And can I phase it out over time? Yes. And that's really how we approached it. So, I don't know that I would have done it any differently. You know,
That's good.
there's things here and there that I might say, I wouldn't have done that. But
Right.
overall, as a project, I think we did it the best way that we could have, being mindful of the user. Because like I said, at the end of the day, they're the heart of what's going to drive this thing. And if they'd have hated it day one, I'm not here today saying how we're successful with the program.
Right.
They're going to reject it and it's garbage.
Right.
But because they had that familiarity, they were able to do it. And through their own evolution, they were finding, well, there's a better way to do it. We don't have to do it that way. Oh, we should, how does it, and I'll get this question. So how does NAB or now BC, how does it do it out of the box like this? We should do that. Perfect. Let's do it.
That's what you want to hear.
And they're driving it. It's not my department taking a callous approach. If you're doing your job wrong, I'm going to tell you how to do it, even though I don't do it. No.
Right. Exactly.
So I think, looking
Smart
back,
approach.
we had to do it. We put in customizations that I probably wouldn't have put in as a person in IT, but as a person who's trying to make sure that the users are happy and that we can still transact and get better user adaptation into the system, we did it the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you're very, very user focused.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have too many more questions for Jim. How about you, Ken?
Yeah, no, I think, 2024, right, is right around the corner now.
Yes.
So the dust is gonna settle on the upgrade and,
Cloud upgrade in 4 months. We got something to talk about in December.
yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about like some process re-engineering,
Yes.
optimization and things like that. Maybe some apps, some new or different apps to improve certain functions, but maybe next year at this time, will you be running on Business Central Online, or is that a bridge too far right now?
Yes.
That's right now. I think it's a bridge too far.
I was gonna say,
Maybe the 2025 podcast will all.
I'm asking for our fans. I'm not asking for.
No, I think honestly, I think it. I can't say for sure that would happen next year.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be opposed to it, and I don't know that anybody on my team would be opposed to it. And I think it really kind of comes down to one of the things that we did notice, though, and I will say this is. With this upgrade, we did see a lot of cases where some things took longer because I was on premise. And I could see that that's going to be the shift. And that's something that I'm trying to be cognizant of as well, is that, oh, well, we have this, and yes, it is for your version, but the version that is in the full cloud version is about a 10-minute install, and this is going to be this much. So they're going to your point, though, of cost. Those are things that I'm going to have to factor into this. And when I present this to, our CFO and the ownership, I'm going to say, like, look, this is where we're at. We have to look at this as an option because this is what it's going to cost us to keep it as a on-premise perpetual license. Where if I do this, I get this back and we can get, these are the advantages.
Yeah.
So I can't say for sure. I could say for sure by 2025, but I can't. Or it might,
Yeah. So and I think, I've been saying for years, I don't think like on-premise is going away. On-premise is still going to be there, but what you're going to see is it's just going to be so much more compelling.
Yes.
To be in the online version that you just naturally select towards that when you're doing an upgrade, right? And I think you do have to be 100% ready, cloud ready, which. So now, if you're in version 21, you're fully extension, right? So in theory, all that works with BC Online. Integrations is another piece that people have to consider to make sure that any like direct SQL ODBC integrations that you have or direct back database, connections, those have to be redesigned through like APIs or web services. But once you do that, then you basically can do create a Business Central Online tenant and migrate that on-premise environment up into BC Online and see how it works, see how it looks, see how it reacts. So you can do that. It's kind of a easy way to check it out without having to pull the trigger on a full go live. So I think there's an opportunity to test that maybe during 2024 to see if it's a viable option for the following year.
And that is actually one of our goals for next year is with this environment. And, we had talked about it, with your team is that capability to have, for lack of a better term, that sandbox environment that I could start to build in those types of apps. And really it turns into what like I said, I want to have it be a non-event. I want to just come in one day and say, okay, guys, September 15th, we're switching over to BC Online 100%.
It is done.
The interface is the same. I really don't want the user to say anything. We switched?
Yeah.
Yes. I really don't want them to notice.
And I think Microsoft, as well as other ERP companies, have been pretty upfront about everything, saying that they're cloud software companies, right? That's
Yeah.
what they are first. They're not going to push on premise anymore. It's all cloud. So to your point, it's the way of the future.
Well, and the scalability of it is just, I mean,
yeah.
that's just something that I'm not going to be able to keep up with it with an on-premise solution. I mean, so I think once we can get some of the other systems that I tie into, you know, I mentioned my PLM system, product lifecycle management system. So we use one called Eris, which all my drawings are done in. So that's something that I have to be very mindful of because we build custom machines. So for me to not have that very core piece of software
Right.
working, that would once again be
Yeah.
detrimental. But now I have the leisure of being able to pilot it in this sandbox environment and build this stuff as Ken is mentioning, and we can start doing test pushes. And then one day everyone's just going to come in and go, "We're on the new one, guys," and that's
It'll be nice. It'll be nice.
yeah.
And just think of the AI features you'll get with a newer version of Business Central.
Co-pilot?
Copilot, absolutely. So I think it's time to get into our AI segment, right?
Yeah, nice segue, Michael.
Yeah.
Well, he said pilot, and it, made me think of
Yeah,
Copilot.
you're on your
Thank you,
game.
Jeff.
Yeah.
It's eggnog. It's got rid of the brain fog. Just kidding. So, does anybody see anything new about AI? Jim, what is your take on AI? I guess, are you for AI? Are you against AI?
I'm for AI. I think it's a
Is
I think
there,
it's
it's an all or nothing option you
it
get?
really is.
It's all or nothing.
You are
You're
in
in
or
or
you are
out. Yeah, you can't be in between.
Yeah.
I like certain things.
There is no gray area
Right.
here. Yeah. No, I'm actually for AI because I think that it can take a lot of the idea is that we want our users to grow and do more advanced things. Well, the way that we can do that is to take some of the menial tasks and rote procedures away from them. And what keeps that from happening is sometimes there's a decision-making chain that is just beyond a standard if-then that the computer can do. So if I can introduce something that might be able to make that logical decision and take a little bit more work away from them and have them doing even more value-added things, I think it's a phenomenal tool.
Does it scare you at all with your background in information systems and security and whatnot? Are you worried about the potential of, I don't know, AI overtaking everything?
No. And the reason I say that isn't, I mentioned it when we were speaking earlier, is that as as human beings, we evolve to keep up with technology. So we're always, I mean, as I was mentioning, when I was a kid, my parents couldn't change the clock on the VCR. Now they have, iPads and iPhones and everything like that. And, I just think about, the other one I always laugh at was when I first got in IT, I was working on a help desk and people would always tell me how, oh my God, my kid is phenomenal with computers. They changed my background to be, our vacation. Wow, Microsoft's not pulling that kid in, huh? And, that was like a high watermark for, now think about it. Somebody told you they're really like, great.
Yeah, who's second graders.
And what I'm getting at is that we caught up with technology and we stay, either parallel to it or even in front of it. So, I mean, I think that as AI evolves, we're going to stay ahead of it, just like we always have with technology. It could be used for bad things, but so can anything else. When it comes to security, I think we need it because, there's going to be somebody using AI to launch a cyber attack on me. Well, I want something AI preventing that cyber attack on me, where I might not have to have that 24/7 monitor. I want a computer doing it, thinking quicker and making decisions faster than we might be able to. So there's good and bad in everything in the world.
Yeah. I think what worries me the most, and maybe you too, Ken, is that, AI is programmed by someone or some business, right? So they're inherently putting their values and thoughts and whatever and
biases, whether intentional or unintentional.
right into AI. And then that kind of worries me.
How's that any different than a human? We're brought up a certain way. We were taught certain things. Our parents teach us things. We're guided by what the environment that we're brought up in and the neighborhoods that we're brought in. So we're getting input and we're reacting to that. And our interactions in society are based off of how we were raised or quote unquote programmed.
Right, but just not at that same scale. So if I ask my parents something, I get an answer, right? And if I go ask a teacher something, I get an answer. But I think most people are going to defer to AI, and the answer is going to be the same for everybody with somebody's bias, though.
Is it though? I mean, we're saying that it's operating off of a central collective brain. I mean,
Well, yeah,
different, you know, I mean, everyone's going to have their own version of AI.
Well, yeah, but
are they? I don't know.
well, but you know, I think we talked about this early on. By the way, where's do we have snacks? Isn't this supposed to be AI?
Sorry,
AI snack time. Is it
different
not?
popcorns.
See, if AI would have done this, we would have already known that that's
We would
part of the program.
A snack, I would be eating a snack right now.
Yes.
If it weren't for that. Okay, so we got some popcorn we're gonna nosh on here. While we, so here's an example. So years ago, one of the earliest versions of AI that they created, they were using it to approve real estate mortgages, loans. And what they found was they had that the
Different guys.
that the AI was looking at the data and it was making decisions based on the data, but those decisions ended up being unfavorable towards certain groups of people.
Sure.
So they changed the code
Right.
and altered the results.
Mhm.
So is that really AI? Or to your point, it's someone putting their biases and saying, well, we can't have it doing this or saying this,
Okay.
making a decision on what's right or not right. So, but to his point, people will trust it as the ultimate source of truth, because how could it be wrong? It's AI. It's using all of the information in the world to come up with this answer.
It was right.
Well, but with what bias is in there. And I think that's part of my biggest hang up on it is transparency. What are the sources that were used or what was altered potentially about that? And I think right now, no one knows.
So could it be the same sources that work at college admission boards that pick and choose the students that get in? And so there's
right.
humans have biases. So
Of course.
So that biased human is programming a computer, just like they're programming their employees. Like
Right.
the computer, I can turn that off or the employee gets fired.
Yeah, but the computer is also at a scale, they can reach a scale that the college admissions people can't. Right, they're only affecting that college for admissions, only biased towards those people. Now those biases are reaching millions and millions of people.
But I'm instilling a value or a bias in you that you're going to take into another job, and you're going to instill that bias into those people, potentially. We're talking about a lot of theoreticals, but I'm looking at it from the point of view of if we're looking at input, it's a programming.
Mhm.
One of the things I like better about a computer is I can pull up code and see you're doing this. I could ask a human and they're going to say, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
A human has the ability to lie to me. A computer is going to give me I'm going to look in there and see what it's telling me.
Well, with the AI that we've seen so far, like with GPT or Bard,
Right.
you can't see the code.
Well,
You don't know what it's looking at and how it came up with its answers. That's my
Somebody
problem.
did it.
It's that transparency.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but who and where and what what did they put in there?
Exactly.
We don't know.
And that's, I think, where the scariest thing is, and when I look at it, is that we program human beings to do good and bad things based off of environment. We're going to teach the computer to do the exact same thing. The difference is I can unplug a computer way easier or reprogram a computer way easier than I can unplug a human. That's,
If I could recap, what I'm hearing is just, new tools, same old shit.
pretty much. We took away what I had mentioned before, the if then. So we took if then, we just brought it to the next level of there's a little more decision-making process in there. So we're graduating a human out of I don't want to say remedial task, because I don't want to minimize, some of these things that it's going to be doing are very
Right.
important, like mortgages, like potentially college admissions and things like that. But at the end of the day, we're hopefully instilling it and programming it with the right values and the right algorithm,
That's
if you
scary
would. And
part,
that's the thing but it's no scarier than you're programmed from something, with what you grew up, and then you go into a job and they might be telling you something different, but you might not agree with that. So you're going to do it your way, or maybe you do agree with it and you're going to do it the way the college does it. So there's multiple biases that can come into play, whereas a computer, it is going to just follow the one. If there's a bias to be had to it, it's going to follow the one bias that we programmed it with. And I don't know that we're ever going to get to this central collective, Skynet version of where it's all coming from a central intelligence. Because first off, there's not money in it for a company like Microsoft to pair with Google, to pair with this one, and they all have one collective thing. They're all going to have their own version of AI, and it's going to keep, because that's really where the money is.
Right. Unless government regulates it.
So you're going to get two different answers. So I'm going to get two different biases,
But I think,
that keeps it honest.
my general assumption though is that they're investing billions of dollars into AI to crush everyone else
Sure.
so that they become the number one AI
You mean Microsoft?
source. Whether
Which is whatever
Google,
company?
Microsoft, I mean,
Oh, yeah. Of course they'll be
Amazon,
doing
or
it, yeah.
I don't know how many other companies are
Right.
taking
So
on
it'll
that
end
type
up,
of
right. The
investment.
winner's going to end up being like a Google search where Google dominates the searching of the internet.
Exactly, yeah, 90%, right?
Right.
Or whatever search engine market share.
Right.
You use it, someone's trying to capture that market share.
So let's look at it like this though, too, is that, we're all making references to, the companies like Microsoft and the Amazons and the Googles of the world. Let's keep in perspective this though. Go back 40 years. Who was the name in computing? It's IBM.
Oh, IBM.
Here, you had a pause because you had to think about that. If you'd asked that question in the 80s, it would have been IBM.
Yeah. I was thinking about search engines. What was it? That stock?
HP. Look, these are companies that were behemoths in the industry. Who would have ever thought that an IBM would have been dethroned?
Yeah.
Are they even a player in the game? They play still in this.
They've got
this
Watson,
but
right? What is
Yeah.
Watson?
AI 20
Right.
years ago. So what I'm getting at it, when you really look at it from that point of view, to me, it's we're afraid of a lot of things, but the world evolves and puts things in check. They owned the computer industry for how many years? And then they fell.
But does it worry you at all that so many big name tech guys, all these Elon Musks of the world and whatever, signed that thing talking about how dangerous AI could potentially be?
Sure. Anything could be dangerous. I have a car. It's very dangerous if I have too many drinks and I go, take
Yeah.
a drive. Any tool that we use that can better humanity could also hurt humanity. So I don't think that I think it has to be regulated. I think that just like anything else in the world, we have to have checks and balances on it, but there's been no great invention that's ever come out of this world that didn't have a dark side.
Yeah.
It's the unfortunate thing is that going back to inherent biases, we will find the human race, we will always find the way to use something good for something bad.
Yeah. For example, we Ken and I think we asked it the question, something about Joe Biden, and it gave like this great, wonderful answer. And then we asked it about Donald Trump,
Same exact question.
and it was completely negative towards.
No, it wouldn't do it.
It wouldn't do it.
It wouldn't even do it, right?
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't even do it. That's
a bias.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of scary though.
Sure, but and I agree with it, but that's a misuse.
At least
of
with
the tool.
Google, if you ask those questions, you're getting. You fall into
Am
the
I?
algorithm. Well, you fall into the algorithm, but you get
Well,
multiple
yeah.
sources to actually decipher and choose what you want to
Yeah, you
read.
just said it's a misuse of the tool,
Right.
but it's pervasive already. And it's not even gone down that rabbit hole, at this point.
I can go the same thing with social media. I love the idea of social media because it prevents a lot of, lets me stay in contact with high school friends that I haven't seen in years and see how they're doing, wishing friends happy birthday, saying that, this is going on. It's great. But then there's the thing where kids are getting cyberbullied on it. And,
Yeah.
You took something that was once something that might happen in school a little bit, but now you've actually taken it and now they're taking pictures of kids and they're spreading it out and they're torturing them with different things. So you could take a good tool and ruin it.
Yeah.
And there's now we're talking about misinformation. Think about how much misinformation was spread via Facebook and all the
sure.
other search engines. How much information was suppressed?
Yeah.
It's a very bad byproduct of technology. And it's always going to fall victim to who the ruling class is. Here, I'm just going to say this is, you're talking about a biased. Now, if you were to ask, I grew up, I'm very proud Italian American. I grew up hearing about Columbus, and I have nothing but great things to say about Columbus because I was always taught good things about him. But if I ask a Native American, they're going to have a very different opinion of Columbus. I don't have to agree with it, and they don't have to agree with me. We're going to have a difference of opinion. I was taught a certain way, and it was taught as Now, it was taught as fact, and this is history.
Mhm.
And I believe that. And I'm not saying that I don't believe that. But a Native American was taught their facts and their history. Who's right and who's wrong.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I see those fears, but that's text.
Mhm.
And there's books that are pervasive throughout history that they're going to look at and go, this is all garbage. You know, they're going to tell you how, you know, not they, but other people will tell you how George Washington was, you know, bad for, you know, reasons X, Y, and Z, but then other people are going to have different books about him. So that's in writing. So now we're just replacing that with a computer. So I think those facts are always there.
Yeah. And I think as long as someone's willing to take the time to do that research,
Right.
that will still be there. But to your point,
No.
the scale
Yeah.
of the bias being built in, and the fact that it may only give one of those answers or one of those perspectives to everyone now could have a big impact. But let's talk about a positive result of AI
Yes.
on the Business Central community.
Wait, okay. Let's do it.
And
What are you
that
talking
is
about?
centralq.ai.
Oh.
It's a
What's that?
website. So it's centralq.ai. It's a website created. I'm just getting familiar with it a little bit recently, but it's a website created by Dimitri Katzin, who is Microsoft MVP. And what he did was created a central search tool specifically related to Business Central. So, and on the top it says AI search fueled by the collective knowledge of the Business Central community. And here's what I really like about it. If you click on collective knowledge, it actually shows you the sources of data that this uses to return its results.
It's got about 50 to 75 different sources.
So yeah, 35,000 pages, 15,000 of which are learn.microsoft.com, YouTube, GitHub, Twitter, and then a slew of other websites, you know, view hundreds of pages on there. So I like that. That's transparency.
Exactly.
So you kind of see where it possibly is getting these answers.
Right. So when you type in a search question or whatever, it'll give you the answer and it'll give you the reference points from where it got the answer.
Right?
Yeah.
Now that's fantastic.
Yes.
And that's a great use of AI.
Yes.
Which is it's a targeted, focused, right?
So
Site.
into Google and Bing's point, you know, they've actually started doing that as well. When you type in a search, if you've got their newer browser, you can type in something, it'll answer your question and then give you references as to where they found that answer from.
Yeah.
As opposed to ChatGPT, where it just tells you an answer.
Which I'm glad we're getting back to the reference point of view, because I that's something that I do find funny with, you know, I have 2 kids in school right now, and it's funny to me, when I was at school, and as probably everyone in this room was, you had to cite all your references when you wrote paper. Now everyone's Googles it, or they do this, and it's not as driven off of proving those references and forcing a kid to go to the library and grab multiple books and things like that could have different perspectives. So I think the fact that this AI tool would actually show you, these are my reference points.
Right.
And it's giving you that transparency and you're understanding it. Now, my question is, can you customize it to say, I don't like what this one, or, you know, maybe the results from this one are, I don't find these to be accurate results. Maybe excluding certain ones would be a nice feature as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be a nice feature that you could choose. Yeah. But I think I've seen where it's giving like 3 to 4 different references and answers for each one. So it's not bad. I like it a lot.
That's great.
Yeah. But I don't know though. Is it just going to dumb down society? Is nobody gonna have to know anything anymore? Right? Like, you know, the thought of what calculators you're gonna ever have to add, and I mean,
Yeah.
you really don't have to know things. Do you really need to know your multiplication tables anymore?
Well, even the tests at school, my kids are both in high school. They use calculators, to take their tests.
Oh, do they?
Oh, yeah.
That was a no. We were in school.
It's not a no. Now they're like special graphic calculators, and
That was
they're allowed
college,
you
yeah.
to come up with, you know.
And I agree, you should know those things, but I guess my question goes back to, now if I were to take that to a job, and this would be a good argument for business, is if there's certain activities that a computer can do that I could actually get more productivity out of my end user by taking simple activities that they can do. Now, what I've found in my experience with this, and is, even at this job or any other job, is when we go and do that with a company and take away I'm not going to call them menial tasks, but the lower level tasks that the computer can do, we advance the user.
Yeah.
They're actually thinking at a higher level now because we're forcing them into thinking at a higher level, because now they're thinking, we're taking away the more simple stuff. And I'm making them think about bigger things. And while we're advancing them, hopefully. And I've seen that some of my users, their knowledge of systems and processes has improved phenomenally since we put in Business Central and we started to think, well, why did you do this? Well, no one else would. Guess what? PC or NAV will do it. Let's automate this process. Now they're doing something else, and now it's pushing the system more forward because I've taken them out of that lower end. So, there could be good and bad to all of it.
Let me give you a quote here by Bill Gates. Bill Gates, this is from the Gates Notes Insider Edition newsletter. And Bill says that 5 years from now, you won't have to use different apps for different tasks. You'll simply tell your device in everyday language what you want to do, whether it's drafting a document, making a spreadsheet, scheduling a meeting, analyzing data, sending an email, or even buying movie tickets. So depending on how much information you choose to share with it, you'll be able to respond. It'll be able to respond to you in whatever language. That is interesting, right? Because to me, that is going to affect the workforce. Right? Because that's essentially going to take the jobs of one person can tell multiple machines to do certain things as opposed to having 5 people do it separately. To me, that's going to be huge. Now, do you guys like that idea where you just come in and say, hey, open up Business Central, I don't know, create GL entry, whatever.
I'm not worried
Add this
about that.
dimension
I'm not
code.
worried about that right now.
Yeah.
Do you see it actually happening?
Not in my
Because, well,
lifetime.
in 2024, I don't know if you know this, Business Central for AI is going to have a chatbot, an AI enhanced chatbot in Business Central.
Yeah, I think
So it might be,
maybe an old dog.
Yeah.
And
that's really repurposing. Here. So by
it.
that analogy, should we have not pushed forward with the car because we were going to put all those horse and buggy people out of business? No, they're taught a new technology. They're taught something.
Oh, I agree.
We have to evolve people and teach them higher level skills.
Yeah.
So you were making, round wheels out of wood. Now we're going to get you something.
But again, it's at the scale that it could be at, though, is right. They're saying something like, I don't know, and potentially in 20 years, AI could do the job of like 400 million people.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, let me say 400. I'm not worried about. Here's what I'm worried about today is I entered a question into Central Q at AI. Similar, I did this test back Chat GPT.
Right.
So my question is, what is the inventory receivables date field on the item card do?
Okay.
It gave me a beautiful answer. As a matter of fact, it says to set the inventory receivables date on the item card, follow these steps. Choose the icon, enter items, and choose the link on the items page. Select the item you want to set the inventory receivables date. Choose edit. Enter the desired date, save your changes.
But
that sounds great, right? 4 paragraphs of beautiful text. There's only one issue. This field does not exist in Business Central. I just made it up. There is no inventory receivables date field. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, so my question is, where did it pull the information from? Maybe there's a third party.
Learn.microsoft.com.
Yeah.
But there is no field on the item card called inventory receivables date. So just tread carefully and maybe don't worry about it making your breakfast for you anytime soon.
It's gonna go viral. Everybody thinks that field's on there.
And you could do the same search, put in any bunch of combination of words as a field, and you're gonna get some very impressive.
Yeah. But for basic things, it works well. I put in, how do you create a sales quote?
Well, but why? How do you trust that?
Well, yeah. If you don't know how to do it, yeah.
But it goes back to the old statement. We heard it earlier today, trust but verify.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the onus does still fall on the human being to verify the data.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't there.
Right.
Now it's corrected.
So this may have saved me a couple steps by maybe I didn't have to go to learn.microsoft.com, find, and then in their search on what I'm looking for to find it. It searched through a whole variety of places, but it came up with a bullshit
I was gonna
answer.
say it wasted more of your time because now you're gonna go in and try it,
Right.
follow the steps, and
Right.
what
So
the hell's going on? They're gonna call support.
anyways, I don't think we're gonna solve this AI thing today here
No,
while we drink eggnog.
I don't think so.
no, and this is an immense think tank from what I saw on the way in. So I mean,
What are you talking about?
I think, you know, I think
Qualified for mental. Yeah.
I resemble that remark.
cheers. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's in its infantile stages. And I think that's what we have to remember though,
Yes.
too.
Yep. Yeah, we're very early on.
All right, so I just want to make a couple more quick points about AI and Microsoft from some things that I learned over the past month or whatever. Let's see here. So Microsoft has finally talked about, your data and whatnot, and how they're getting information into their AI models. So your data is your data. It is not used to train the foundation of AI models. So if you're worried about putting information into Business Central that you want other people to see, and AI taking your information and giving it to everybody else, you do not have to worry about it.
Can't possibly happen.
I didn't say that. But it does say your data is protected by the most comprehensive enterprise compliance and security controls out there. So maybe it can happen. Other than that, I got Microsoft announces a custom AI chip that could compete with NVIDIA.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd like to wrap this up here with a little holiday themed blog article that I just recently posted on speakingbusinesscentral.com. So I will also have a link to it in the show notes. And this is a Business Central end users list of New Year's resolutions. So New Year's resolutions for a Business Central end user.
Okay, let's hear it.
These are some possible options for
There you go.
people to consider. I resolve to learn one new thing about Business Central each week, even if it's something as simple as a new keyboard shortcut. It's a
Feasible.
good resolution, right?
Feasible. It's
One
possible.
little thing, learn one thing every week.
There you
Okay.
go.
Next, I resolve to finally stop trying to understand what the heck a dimension code is and why it is so important to those finance and accounting nerds.
Yeah, it's not a good one.
No.
You got to understand what a dimension code is.
Okay. Fair enough. These are thoughts. These are options, potential. It's the brainstorming. I resolve to create detailed user documentation or standard operating procedures that walks through the steps I use in Business Central to complete my job tasks.
It's a good one.
That's a good one, yeah.
That's a good one. Okay. I resolve to stop moving items in the warehouse without also recording it in Business Central so that our bin contents will remain accurate.
You don't want double the stuff.
That's a great one.
Yeah, see?
For you, yeah.
That's the end user talking right there. Please.
That's number
don't
one on the
stop
list.
moving
Yeah,
things,
yes.
right? All right. I resolve to spend time reviewing the Dynamics 365 release notes that describe the new features to be included in upcoming versions of Business Central before each new release is deployed, so I can determine if there are any changes that will benefit me in my role with the organization.
I like it, but who's going to do it?
These are resolutions.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
It's
for sure.
It's an opportunity to start fresh.
Yeah.
Michael, come
Yeah,
on.
Yeah,
All right.
I like it.
All right. I resolve to actually read the error message displayed by Business Central on my screen to determine if I can possibly resolve the issue on my own before calling the support help desk.
That's ridiculous because the most of the messages.
I think you'd be behind that one.
No, because if actually the messages are the most vague messages that ever pop up. If you ever Google, I'll go into Microsoft and type it, use this code to find,
Oh, yeah,
paste it in,
yeah,
it does nothing. So that resolution means nothing.
All right, fair enough. I resolve to share my knowledge of Business Central with other users, including other users within my organization, in online user forums, and maybe even at a user conference.
That's a good one.
Yeah, good.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're here. Yeah.
I
You got the
resolve,
secret stuff.
next one, I resolve to stop being frustrated with the volume of GL entries generated by Business Central from within purchasing, jobs, and manufacturing. And will instead just accept that these entries are created for a reason and that it is a good thing that they are there.
Got to accept it.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I can accept that.
I resolve to learn how to create and use the web services create data set feature to pull data from Business Central into Excel or Power BI so that I can analyze the data I need in the format I need it and when I need it.
It's a big one.
You know?
It's good. Might
And
as well
then-
throw in, I resolve to use Power Apps too.
And then last one, I resolve to listen to a shot of Business Central and a beer podcast. Because although those guys are sometimes goofy as all get out, they are mostly interested in sharing important Business Central news and information with the BC community.
It's okay.
I was thinking an
I
AI
like
bias there.
it. Yeah. Little bias.
Yeah,
But no, that's what we do, right? We share the
that's
information.
what we're trying to do.
Yes.
So happy
I mean, we never
holidays.
talk about how awesome we are as a company and that we can do everything and all the departments we have and right.
So anyways, kind of a little fun, lighthearted blog post for the end of the year. Maybe
liked it.
maybe one or two of those. You know, you said, oh, who's gonna do all those? Not all of them, but maybe one.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were reading me yesterday, I'm like, there's no way one person's going to sit here and do all this stuff. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
maybe a power user.
Yeah. They should get a job then.
Yeah,
Hire them in a second. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us then, right?
about a wrap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next month I'm going to be interviewing Ken on a fancy book that he wrote a few years back to see how well that book still applies to today's world.
Heavy focus on implementation,
Yeah, implementation.
implementing new modules, new features, and or just Business Central altogether.
Yeah. So, but with this, thank you, Jim. We appreciate you coming by for the annual holiday tradition.
Thank
Hope
you. I
to see you
appreciate it.
next year with some good updates, maybe some cloud information.
No, I really appreciate you guys having me back. Like I said, it's become a great Christmas tradition and a holiday tradition that we do every year.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Awesome.
And, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Take care, everybody.
As we end today's podcast, we want to give a big thank you to everyone who listens, shares this podcast, and leaves us reviews. You've taken a good amount of your time out of your day, and we truly appreciate it. Thanks again, and don't be afraid to email us at marketing@solsyst.com with your tips for the podcast, or maybe you'd even like to be a guest during an episode.